Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Three Cops Talk. This is Sean, and I'm joining you from South Carolina. First day it's not rained in about 3 weeks. It's kind of nice. I'm also joined by Rich Uncle Chris. He's Florida. He advises us that it rains every day there, and it just
just for an hour.
It's
just for an hour, just enough to let the gators and frogs run around, and
just long enough so while you're waiting outside of Space Mountain, and you just get drenched, and then you go in that air conditioning, and then you're riding around like this would be a really cool ride if I wasn't like soaked to the bone,
right?
You know what I mean, kind of thing.
I got to get the poncho.
Oh my God.
Or the Haunted Mansion. The Haunted Mansion's like.
Hey, I'm a Pollock, man. We bring glad bags. Cut a head and 2 arms in it. There you go. I'm not spending it.
You're just fighting your arm out the hole of the bag.
I'm not spending any more money than I have to.
Because at Disney, that would be like, oh, that's $150 for that poncho, sir. It's like, what? Oh, okay. All right. Anyway.
And then the kids are throwing them out at the end. You're like, I could cover my car.
Big Sergeant Scott's joining us from Illinois.
Yeah.
There you go. Back from Illinois.
Yay.
Illinois is such a downer. We were talking yesterday about.
Sorry, I should be more enthused.
About land of Lincoln.
There's so many great things.
How much it sucked for Lincoln, for Abraham Lincoln, the president, the great emancipator, to be associated with Lincoln, like his name's on license plates and stuff like that. I guess, I don't know, there's some place, I think down at the Capitol, you can go down there and actually touch his nose. Like there's a bronze bust of a younger Abraham Lincoln, and everybody goes and touches his nose like it brings them luck or something. I don't know what that means. I guess the turtle at Maryland has the same.
Somebody better go sit on it because that's not having any luck at all.
Right. There you go. But it's really sad that Lincoln gets stuck with that. He's born in Kentucky, and obviously he did a lot of things in Illinois. Got his law degree there. And oddly enough,
they might be replacing it with J.B. Pritzker.
Right. There you go.
Pritzker.
And some of the things he's got going for us there, or had you guys going for there. Look, there's good and bad about all states obviously involved with that, but that's just some of the wild stuff that, you think about with all of this stuff. Some of the things that are going on in the media right now is obviously we've been talking a lot about this Uvalde thing. And, on the heels of all of it, you're seeing a lot of things like the police failed to act. And it's not the first time that something like this has happened in a circumstance where, like I always say, our most precious commodity is in the process of being slaughtered, and you got to let me clear this through my boss to go in there and try to save somebody's life, and there's glaring examples of other active shooters where, ordinary civilians stand up and they're I've read now it's 40 feet or 40 yards away, and he out of 8 out of 10 for an untrained shooter. Maybe he's not an untrained shooter, but he 8 out of 10 to stop an active shooter in Indiana. It wasn't
it's impressive though.
Wasn't it in Indiana when that happened?
Yeah, mall.
Yeah,
mall shooter.
It's got to be 40 feet, but still, that's a long way to do 8 out of 10. 40 yards.
It's 12 yards. Yeah. It's 12 yards. I'm going to tell you, from the statistics that I used to keep on cops, around 15 yards is where you started separating the mice from the adults. I can't say mice from men because we have quite a few women in the profession, and God knows those previous shows. I don't want to leave anybody out.
And it was holding a slice of Sbarro pizza.
Yeah. And luckily, though, it was a
in
mall.
The food court.
And no one's in malls anymore. We went to a mall today. We went to a mall today, and it was actually like, it's like I said, it's like Chernobyl after the reactor blew up.
Mm-hmm.
Like people used to do something in this place. Everything's boarded up and closed, and there's a food court, and you get really good Chinese food served to you by really good Mexican cooks. It was like that's what it was. I mean, again, I don't mean to offend anybody yet again, but that was I'm just describing as I saw, like in an incident report. If somebody asked me what I saw, it was depressing because I don't know about you guys.
Like an incident report.
Because if you tell the truth now, people get mad at you. Like, oh, I can't believe you said they were Mexican cooks serving Chinese food. It's just like, it was a Chinese restaurant.
It's the truth.
2 men standing there had clothing on that was indicative of the fact that they were proud to be from Mexico, and the food was good. Someone would get mad at me about that.
Why? Because the shirt says
everything's like an incident report.
Proud to be from Mexico?
It's an incident report. I have to establish it. Look, I'm just saying, like,
stating
facts, and even facts offend people now. But it was really sad to go there. There's like nothing going on there, and I thought about you want to go out with your family, you want to do something, you want to go to the mall, and when the mall's empty, which is, I guess, nice if you're concerned about active shooter incidents, but it makes you more of a target because there's nobody around. You're walking through these big stores like Belk and Dillard's and stuff down there, and the people that are working there, you're looking at them like, what do you guys do all day? Like, nobody's here. Nobody's buying anything. Right. How much Clinique can you just, rearrange while you're standing there? And they're super nice, but
who's doing all those experiments? Because those girls in the Clinique area wearing those lab coats, I always wondered all those experiments that they were working on all the time.
It's you know what it is? It's that it's totally all of that pimple popping stuff you can get on on YouTube. Like if you click on one of those videos, then your feed's constantly filled with them.
Gross.
It's now moved into the realm of like messing with people's feet.
Oh, dude, don't stop.
Yeah, that's right up your alley.
That's way too niche. Way too like strange.
Stop.
This
Did you
I honestly
see some of those things.
Start an initiative like to maybe push that shit.
Who lets their nails curl around
really
under, for God's sake?
Right. I'm just talking about just in general, like some of the bunion work or the scales on the bottom of people's feet or something like
the
that. It's just
fungus with the curling toes underneath.
Wow.
I'm like,
Right.
what? How? What?
Did you notice though that the malls are starting to have like massage places and foot rub places in them? At least some out
in
here
an old
they are,
Spencer's
like
Gifts.
One big,
it smells like it smells
yeah.
like all that. Well, all those weird
The violet incense.
toys.
Yeah.
They use it
And like
Spencer's Gifts.
my weed leaf socks that I needed to get, and
and a black and white
NKOTB poster
5x8 of Eric Estrada. You know,
But wasn't
what I mean?
didn't they have those
glossy.
velvet ones that glowed that glue in the dark?
You had to go in the back for those.
Yeah, with your black light,
Right.
the black light.
And then you had the coffee gag gift that you could get the coffee mug that like when you tilted it, like the girl's
The penis comes out or
came down.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, no, not a penis. It was a girl. I guess. I mean, this is how far we give a Spencer gift. But yeah, it was wild. It was so weird to be there. And I was thinking, like I said, well, it really kind of sucks when you go out. You got to think about these stupid things. And then we got in there. I was like, "Ooh, I'm relieved that there's nobody in here." So if you're looking for a mass.
Hey, there's no one here.
Let's go to the mall because at least we're safe. Because if I was a sick individual, and I'm not trying to make light of these things, there's they go for target-rich audiences, and the mall was just not one. Unfortunately,
Oh, you got speed walkers now.
Fortunately, that kid from Indiana, a young man from Indiana, did what was right, stepped up, and people are railing against his right to have access to a weapon to stop that. And then you look at, well, if the police came, what would they do? Because, this is what everybody's questioning about Uvalde. And it goes back to this whole idea that we've talked about for, since 2015, it's like really where this all started to come to be was like, are cops guardians or are cops warriors? And as divided as America is, like you look at it and you go, like, I can't, like everyone's like, well, you can't be both. You can't possibly fill the role of both. You got to be one or the other. And when times are safe, they want us to be guardians. And when times are rough, they want us to be warriors. But they've done nothing really to help prepare us to be warriors. Look, I'm not knocking police training, but police training is nowhere near enough to turn people into high-end precision shooters under tremendous stress with a pistol while you're moving with a shield and everything else. That takes practice, a lot of practice.
That precision does. But if you want, to my opinion, I've been thinking about this. If you take it down to the bare minimum, the bare bones, everybody, and I'm just talking about through history. Let's just take it. Guys, the males were the hunter, gatherers, protectors. They didn't walk around all knocking the crap out of each other. They hunted and gathered together. Then when other tribes came to come in, they became warriors. So I think you have to be both. Look at this young man in Indiana. Here he is going for a yogurt or a polo shirt or taking his girl on a whatever, and he's just over there being okay. I'm going to take care of my girlfriend or whoever he was with, my friends. All of a sudden, this pops off. Guess what? He flipped the switch and became a warrior, a warrior.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it just so happened he practiced for the precision shots. And you could train that, but I also think and this is a whole other path, I think it's our responsibility to know that we can do that too on our own without having to go to training. We should be training on our own. But anyway, that's a different story. But I think that young man shows that you need to be and can be both, male or female.
Mm-hmm. Scooter?
And you got to have the mindset. Right. You got to have the mindset for it. Like, that's a big thing from our training, from the training that Sean used to run us through all the time that we still continue to do, that you got to be in the right mindset for that. You need to be proficient in the weapons that you carry and the tactics that you use. But, you got a big part of it's the mindset. Are you ready for that kind of encounter? Are you ready to step up when that happens? And that was something we learned from doing a lot of that scenario-based training. That's some of the best training I've ever done. We talk about the standing at the range, 20 years ago, 25 years ago in the police academy, and stand there, shoot 2 rounds, put your gun in the holster, paper doesn't shoot back, you're no stress, no tactical breathing, none of the things that are associated with those types of confrontations. And at least that training is about as close as you're going to get to the real thing. And you experience the effects of how that, what happens with your body when that stuff kind of happens. And it's good to experience that and realize, okay, this is what I'm going to be feeling. This is what I'm going to be experiencing. This is what I maybe don't notice or don't hear when that moment comes. But I just think I think a big part of it, first of all, is mindset, along with being proficient in what you're using.
No, I agree. And I think all of us, well, at least I know for us, because I hang around, mostly cops, the people I hang out with, they are in that mindset. They're guardians, all the time. There really is no off on that. But when stuff goes nuts or goes sideways or goes south, however you want to put it, they all become warriors. And I think people need to have both. And for people to sit there and second guess this young man after God knows how many lives he saved, it's repulsive that they would even say, well, he shouldn't have been carrying a gun or whatever, because you want to know what? None of your family members were in that mall. That's why. So you just,
Right. Well, go ahead, man.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. You guys, you both brought up really great points for the lead in on this, and for our listeners to better understand what we're talking about here, because people could be very confused. Like, what is this guardian warrior? Like, they just see us as cops and maybe don't understand the mentality, what goes into it, and what the debate is within our world, the police world. And then for people that really don't know, as we've talked about before on this show, a lot of folks don't really understand what police do and what we're required to do at a moment's notice. They gain a lot of it through social media and movies and things like that. But the two mindsets that they talked about, they're really, like I said, the studies have been done by like the Brookings Institute, a lot of police think tanks and things like that. And it depends upon who's talking and who's doing what and how rough the seas are at the time when these articles are coming out, depending upon where people fall in this. Like, well, the mentality, the warrior mentality, was one that they said kind of came to be like while we were on the job. That the 20 years that we were on, it was more about, officer safety. You went home at the end of the day, no matter what. Force was not something you debated; you just did. And it was more of like you saw yourself as an occupying army fighting a force like it was an enemy, and the enemy was crime, and criminals are still Americans, and people were turned off by that. But the Guardian side of the house sees it more of a situation where you're here to form partnerships, work in partnership with the community, and things like that. Well, when crime is not spiraling out of control like it has been over the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, it's great to be a guardian. Everybody wants to talk to us, or not wants to talk to us, or nobody even wants to think about it, because like nobody cares about something. Like when Uvalde happened, I happened to work at a school at the time that Uvalde happened. Guess what we started dusting off and working on again? I mean, you guys want to take a guess?
Active shooter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Our active shooter protocol became a thing. All the people from the school were coming to us and, hey, we need to think about this. Even though they were going on all over the place, active shooters. Now when it touched the school and what it was, everybody all of a sudden wanted to work on that. And just before I left, that was a big initiative and everything like that. But the bottom line is that the community we serve doesn't worry about it until it's an issue. You know what I mean? It doesn't worry about that until it's an issue. So a lot of folks don't understand like how it works. Some of the folks that run our profession say, warrior is about 10% of what we have to do. The rest is 90% is guardian. But having come from the training realm, I would say to train for that. And I agree with people. I think 90% of what we do, most people like us, most want to be on our side, most agree with us no matter what their race, creed, color, gender, sexual affiliation, proclivity, or declaration is. People support the police when you really get right down to it. We're really still a profession that trends well over 50-60% approval ratings amongst the people that we serve and the communities and everything else, even in light of a lot of the recent things that have happened. But the bottom line is to be a warrior and to be that precise of a warrior, to do the things that people expect of us, like they see in movies and they see like Navy SEALs doing, and they see special operation community folks doing from the military and SWAT guys and everything else is a 90% training thing. So you can say 10% of the time you need to be a warrior, but if you dedicate 10% of the time to train for that, you are going to fail people miserably. They're one, mindset wise, like you guys said, you're not going to be there. And what I used to try to do is say, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for your ability to manage stress so you don't make this situation worse for everyone else. And stress inoculation is a huge part of that. And you don't get that by only doing 10% training on that. And stress is everything. Stress is good for you. Whether people say, oh, I want a stress-free life. Well, then, you know what? You are going to die way sooner. And it's been proven, because stress is a necessary thing for us to survive and grow and learn and become more productive and everything else. And it's been proven. Manageable stress is part of what we need to deal with as police officers. Now, we have rough hours and diets and, workloads and 12-hour shifts and, working when other people aren't and seeing horrific things. But the bottom line is how we manage our stress in a lot of ways is through fitness. Now, most agencies across the country, look, I'm not saying this just to be funny, but tell me that you go to an organization, you don't have that stereotypical, hey, look at the fat cop yelling at people. People see that. Like, we don't do that. Right. We're not pure about that ourselves. A mandatory fitness requirement annually to pass a physical fitness test. So by the time I traverse a set of stairs, I don't get up to the top of there, and I'm so exhausted where my mind can't function properly, which has been proven through heart rate and everything else over time. I will go to deadly force because I'm desperate, rather than, can I think of some other way of dealing with this? Then, if I've never worked in it in a scenario, I've never pictured it in the mind's eye. So when I get it out on the street, I'm not really prepared for it either. And you see that all the time. How many videos have you watched, both of you watched, whether it be, body cam video from closed circuit television somewhere, where you watched what happened with a police officer and it wasn't something that necessarily went well, and you looked at it and said, that cop was just afraid or not prepared. It's all the time. It's all the time.
Yeah.
So when people talk about you got to be one or the other, one, I think they're wrong. I think they're completely wrong. We have to be both. And we have to all look at the mission for what it is. We are largely a guardianship. We are servants to the people, and we serve through leadership, and that's what we do. The bottom line is you saw in Uvalde and you saw in Broward County, as Chief Prestizzi talked to us about, you got to have your folks coached to a point where they're prepared to take those moments of going and do that. I'm not saying you got to go headstrong and die and do something stupid, just simply, that's the door. Go through that door. Well, he just shot 4 cops. Go through that door anyway. No, think of a different tactic. We've got to get in other ways and you learn to effectively communicate with each other theoretically on that battlefield at that time. But we don't do a good job of that. We're like, yeah, we trained active shooter training. What do we do? Well, we did the diamond, and then we did the wedge, and then we did this, and then we did that. And it's just like, we're not even doing that anymore. What are you doing to get in there? What are you doing to communicate? Are you ready? Have you worked with that weapons platform? When was the last time you qualified with it? Oh, 2 years ago? It's like when Kramer's doing the slicer. Elaine's like, I can do that. He's like, no, you don't. Where does the meat go? It goes right there. Well, where do you turn it on? Right there. Well, where does the meat go? Right. Where does the meat go? And that's what you could say to a guy picking up an AR once a year. You know what I mean? It's something that we all need to be much, much better about. But I firmly believe that we need to be both.
When we talk about at the police academy, and I've done a lot of training over there over the years. And
professor now or something.
One of the
over
things
there?
that I talked about,
got your doctorate or something.
Yeah.
Adjunct.
Okay,
Adjunct.
He got the
Professor,
elbow patches for his
title.
razor now, so he's official. He's tenured faculty. He can do whatever he wants.
Right. I'm tenured. I have an attaché case that I carry with all my papers in it.
And everything's online learning now for you.
But like, right. So you're talking to these new recruits over there, and they know that it's a dangerous job, but you remember how it was when you were in the academy, you're all excited to get out there and do stuff. And you had that sense of going out and making a difference and helping the community. And not that you still don't want to do that, but I would bring that up, those topics. And the most recent one that I had talked about in there was Parkland and the SRO and that whole scenario and how that went down. And we touch on that and talk about, yes, a lot of the focus is on the guardian part, but that part of it, we talk about the warrior part, and we tell them, and I would tell them, this guy made mistakes. This guy didn't do what he should have done. And yes, you are going to have to go into potentially a situation like this, and you are going to walk into the most horrific, awful thing you've ever seen or heard, and will probably never be the same from it, whether it's a good outcome or a bad outcome, or you live or die. But you have to go into that with the mindset of, I have to get in here and stop this.
Right.
I'm going to win. I'm going to not allow any more children in this school to be slaughtered by some crazy person. I'm going to get in there and do whatever I can, whether that means I have the opportunity to take that person out, or I at least get them into a position where they can't do any further damage, and then we can address it from there. But it's terrible to think about, and I look at the look on some of these young recruits' faces, and you could tell that it was kind of registering, but you have to be thinking about that. That is part of what we do. It's not all the time, but it's part of it, and you gotta have that in the back of your head.
Well, I think the other thing is, I think people need to be clear. I mean, that you can't have just one. I think you have to have both. And the people that he shouldn't have been having a gun and all this other stuff. And I don't want to mean, I don't mean this disrespectful to anybody, but what do you want? I mean, you can't just have yeah.
Right.
I mean, you just
What's the
can't have
alternative?
Police that are going to walk around and say, hey, you should, put a piece of yellow tape on that stair so people don't fall, or, you just can't have that guardian type. If you want a society that's peaceful, lawful, and a good place for you to live, you have to have both. And listen, and if you don't want to see that warrior part, I respect that, because it's not for anybody. It's like I'm not a surgeon because I prefer not to watch my own surgeries. You know what I'm saying? Or any.
You're allergic
surgery.
to latex? Is what it is? Is that why?
Right.
You wear those rubber gloves.
So I don't.
Of course, they've advanced beyond latex.
Right.
Oh, it's the gloves.
I only have two
But that's
kids.
what I meant.
Sheepskin.
Anyway. Right.
But I mean, I don't want to watch it, nor do I want to see it, or nor do I want to know that exists. But I know that it's there if I need an operation, that I have somebody there that could take care of that. And even when they try explaining to me, I'm like, hey, no offense, doc, but am I going to be okay? And what do I need to do? I don't need to know how many pounds you cut out or what you did, or I don't need to know that. I just need to know that I'm good. And that's what I think people have to understand. If you don't want to,
his calf implants. It was his calf implants that he was getting. He didn't want to talk about it.
But I mean, but that's the thing. If you don't want to know about it, that's okay. It's not for everybody, but it has to exist. Then don't start questioning when this happens, because it's a necessary evil.
Well, I mean, I do think some people,
and there's bad people out there,
and people don't want to acknowledge that.
There's bad people out there that do bad things.
And then there's mentally ill bad people out there as well, because not everybody that's mentally ill is going to pick up a gun and do some. There are varying degrees of that, and mental health is a big issue with this. But not every person that suffers some form of mental illness, including police officers, is going to do something that sinister. Like, those are signs that are broadcast well far in advance, and we've talked about that, like you said, with Chief Pastizzi, Rich Wistocki, several other people, about how these things were broadcasted, and we all go, well, how did this happen? How did this happen? What I'm talking about is the people, the 1% total people that are willing to go out and put themselves in harm's way. Our society is 326 million people in this country, and less than 1% of them at any one time are putting their asses on the line to do that. Our society knows very, very little about the sacrifice that people have to make to get to that point. And I'm not saying that they should know. I'm just saying that for people that live in the comfort of that, to be so critical of that, we need to do a better job of educating folks to the fact that just because you throw on a uniform, just because you have a gun, just because you serve your country, doesn't mean that you're equipped to do it, two, that you're in the right mindset, and that by the time that you're done doing it, if you have to do that, you're doing it the same way a soldier does it as the way a cop does it. I used to explain to people all the time, ours doesn't end just like the soldiers' doesn't end when they leave the battlefield. We see horrific things, and the next call, I'm helping a lady get a cat out of a tree. And I've got to make that gear shift. What people don't understand about when I was in the military, look, and this is just me talking, there are people in the military that have to get really, really close to the people that they're trying to stop from doing any of us harm. Police officers do that every single day. We have to be doing it under the guise as a guardian with somebody that's mentally ill, and I'm doing it at an arm's distance. Do you know how long an arm's distance is? like I'm Irish, and arm's distance is like you're getting way too close to me, like, and that's my parents. You know what I mean? Like it's like some people just don't like people being around them. And as a police officer, you have to conquer that space all of the time. That is a reactionary gap that is so fast and so unforgiving. We don't get credit for it. We don't get credit for it as cops. Like, why'd you do what you do? I watched a video one time of 4 New York coppers. I think they just graduated from the academy or something like that. I don't know the backstory, the full backstory of it. But this dude just comes running out of a store and clocks one of the guy in the head with a hatchet. Remember that video? Remember that when that happened, you guys? And I'm thinking to myself, that's a cop's world.
I do.
That is a cop's world.
Yeah.
They ended up using deadly force to stop that guy. But the guy that got hit with the hatchet fortunately survived. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a cop's world. Everybody around you has the potential to do that to you. Like, be kind to everyone you meet, but have a plan to kill everyone. If you say that as a cop, you're a warrior, you're not a guardian, you're not doing it right. Well, wait a minute. They're just standing there having a conversation by a coffee shop, and a dude comes running out, tries to clock him. We had an officer at the agency we just worked at. Famous video, guy jumping out of a car, trying to hit a dude with a hatchet. In a town that has prided itself for decades, probably since its inception, to be one of the safest, largest cities in America. This is what's going on out there, and people don't understand that. The other thing we don't do a good job of is informing people of the threats that we see and how quickly it can change and how quickly not. And the other thing is, let's just be straight, guys. We have, just like in any other job, cowards that do our work that will not go in and do those things. I don't know how to animate that many cops, whether it be in Broward County or Uvalde, are the two big ones that we can point to, that no one thought it was important when they heard a gun going off to move towards the sound of gunfire as opposed to just standing in place. And that's disturbing. It's despicable. Yeah. I mean, my old SWAT boss used to say to me, great dude, he'd say, there are some things worse than dying, guys. And that would be one of those things that I don't know if I could continue on as a cop. I would definitely have to go find some pilgrimage somewhere to get me straight if I just stood there and let that happen. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to demonize those human beings. I'm just telling folks that if you invest very little in training, screening, and going, hey, this is a job that any idiot can do, which a lot of people will tell you about law enforcement, you're going to get those results over and over and over again. Because there's a quote, Herculetus, I think is what, if I'm pronouncing his name right, 540 BC, talked about warriors and said, out of 100, 10 of them shouldn't be there. They have no business being on the battlefield whatsoever. 80 of them are just going to be people that attract bullets and make bad things happen. 9 of them will fight and live the day and live through it, but they're not like the one true warrior that is the guy that will, or the girl for that matter, that will bring them all back. Don't think that doesn't apply to the police world as well. And again, I'm not saying that all those other numbers of people have no value and purpose in our world, but when it goes to shit and you have poor leadership and you have poor training and you have poor equipment and you have poor mindset, people that don't think it's ever going to happen, these are the kind of things that you're going to have happen to you until you start compensating people properly, until you start paying for training on the level that you need to, and start staffing to appropriate training for that. Because to get to SEAL Team 6, or any SEAL team for that matter, do you know what you got to go through to get to that point? Do you know how much money is spent on you to become that razor-edged, honed warrior that you are? People are like, well, why can't you go there as cops? Well, let me explain to you why we can't do that as cops. Do you want your taxes to be as high as they are for paying for the education system you got right now? If it's a solid education system, people would look at you and go, never. I was like, well, then continue to deal with the results that you're going to get and hope for the best. Hope for that one warrior that's out there. And if there's 800,000 cops working at one time and 60% of them are only in patrol, and the most common shift out there is 12-hour shifts, that means only a quarter of those people are working at one time. And if you break that down by 18,000 different countries, that means that theoretically speaking, you have 6 cops available to you at one time, no matter where you are in the United States, theoretically, until the balloon goes up and then everybody tries to show up. And out of that group, out of that 100, which I think is true because I've seen it firsthand, 90% of them are going to be not the ones that turn the tide of that circumstance. You're not really preparing yourself for the modern 21st century things that we face. Now, again, I'll go back to 90% of what we do is guardianship, and I believe that. I think the 10% of the warrior stuff that we need to do takes 90% of the training that we should be engaging in.
I agree. I agree.
And that rant is over. And that rant is over. And that rant is over.
I agree.
It's aggravating.
I mean, you have to take 4 years to be a doc, to go to med school, 4 years before you go into, marketing for
to leave a sponge in a guy.
Why don't you just, you want to put education? Then you got 4 years of rifle training, gun training, all this other stuff until you're the age of 21. I mean, why not? But you can't. I don't know.
Why is there no
I don't know if
preparation
you can
for it?
really train warrior mindset either. I don't
know. I personally haven't trained. I think you can. You just got to get enough training and to know who those people are and where they need to be. And it's just like anything else. It's like we have seniority of selection. Scott can tell you this because he's been a supervisor for a while. Anybody that supervises cops can tell you this. Like if I had the choice to pick my team, I would pick my team and say, here's who I want to go on this mission with me or do this or do that. And that's where some of those more selective units have the luxury of doing that. Like, the seriousness of being a canine officer is you have another living thing that's relying upon you that you can't be reckless with because it can cause a lot of damage and a lot of damage to the reputation of the agency or the profession. I firmly believe that you can. It's just that we need to do a better job doing it because guess what? Every little kid that picks up a hockey stick or a football or a baseball bat thinks they're going to be
I'm going to be
professional.
Right.
And we spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to give our kids the opportunity to have a dream that maybe about 2% of the total group of people that do it make it. And those 2% that make it are people we worship. But we don't want to do that for cops in the hopes that even if we get 9 of them out of that and that percentage goes up a little bit, we can have way better people doing our work. I don't look at what's facing our society right now. I think this is paramount, obviously, because I'm a cop and I'm a trainer and I believe in it. But the bottom line is it can be done because there's nothing we can't do when we all work together. And I know that sounds corny, but I firmly believe we can.
Well, you talk about the stress inoculation thing, and that's always something that comes back to me from doing stuff at the police academy because that was part of what we would talk about in the one block of training that I would do. It was crimes in progress type scenarios. And we would hammer it in a PowerPoint talking about the importance of it and what it does. And as you experience, you're going to experience varying types of stress in a variety of situations over the course of your career. And as you experience more of that, it wears on you, but at the same time, it helps you be prepared for the next one when you have some kind of high stress environment. But I always felt like that. They talked a lot about it, but I don't feel like that we really maybe did enough training to really build that up in you. You know, I mean, we did a lot of training in scenarios in the police academy, at least the police academy that we went to, and you know, I don't have anything to compare it to because I haven't gone to any other
Scott, not to interrupt you.
When I go back and
as compared to what you guys do now, you guys truly do the whole, you know, to reduce stress or learn stress. Back then, they just did it to bust our chops. That's what I believe. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true. Like there was definitely part of that. Like, let's just see if they can handle it and weed them out kind of thing. And, you know, I guess I have a different perspective on it now from like having police experience and then coming back as somebody who's teaching these classes. You have a different perspective and you're like, wow, I really wish I'm sitting here talking about it, but I'd rather have you experience some of that. And I did what I could to try to, you know, with those scenarios and things. And it was a lot of the same stuff that we had done way back then. But I'd like to always look for ways to try to kind of up the game a little bit on these scenarios and give people some realistic. You can't give them everything. It's a what is it? A 16-week academy.
If you're lucky, your state can afford that, and it's worthy. And the training, right.
Depending on where you're at,
like each state can have numerous different agencies that they put people through for training, and the state police focuses more on looking. You know, Chris, what's that saying you have about troopers? Like, it's funny, but like the things that you have a great saying about it. I go back to one of the previous shows where we talked about the troopers, where it's like, you know, hospital corners on your beds or something like that, whatever it is. That's what they focus on, and that's what they need to do. But now that's a totally different agency from there. If you're in a state like South Carolina, everybody goes through the same basic academy. Whether you're going to be a county cop, a city cop, a trooper, highway patrol, whatever the hell they call them, you know, we really got to get better at this because it'd be like, you know, by the time you get to the academy, you've been told by you're a draft pick, for so to speak. And they're like, oh yeah, you're our guy. And you get there and you don't know how to put your holster on. That'd be like, hey, my kids play goalie for their entire life. And they get to a camp where they're going to screen these kids out for a really, really big team. And my son goes out there with the pads on the wrong legs and he's not wearing a chest protector and he's got the glove on the wrong head. People are like, what the hell are you doing, man? How long have you been playing hockey? This is an insult to us. You're wasting our time and you're paying us to be here. You're wasting our time. That's what they say to us. For a cop, we go, oh, you'll
Right,
learn. And it's like, oh, you have a means that can take somebody's life at literally an arm's distance, and you've touched the thing maybe 2 or 3 times by the time you're like, I'm out on the street in field training. And if something goes bad, somebody's going to expect me to be that guy that popped up at the freaking food court in Indiana and put 8 rounds out of 10 shots in a guy at 12 yards. I mean, people expect us to be good at that, and they have so very little understanding of what your stress is. You know how many people fail out of academies because they can't shoot? It's one of the highest things that burns people out. The next highest thing that burns people out in academies is maybe academics. But the stress of performing in a scenario, and then like, how does your agency handle it if you have only 6 guys working the street, and your agency handle it and you got 60 guys working the street at one time? Totally different ball games, and people don't understand that. And you go to it and people's like, well, shouldn't you know how to do this by now? I should know how to do this before I get to the police academy. The police academy is just
and it's important that
you're so good, you're ready to roll, dude. That's all it is. It's just, this is the state's blessing on you, and it's even more valuable training time. Look at it like this.
And while those things are fresh in your head, your agency, when you come to that agency from the academy, they should be sticking right with that and keep that rolling and building on that, what you got from that academy. I was an FTO for a short time, and some of the people that I trained already had prior experience, but I did have some people that were new to the job, and I always wanted to try to, a good FTO gets new probationary officers involved in those scenarios, takes them to those scenarios, even if they're not the primary person to handle those scenarios. Go to those calls, experience those things. And if you're not the one who's the main primary officer on that, but it's something maybe kind of, high risk, stressful or whatever, you meet with the officer that handled it after and kind of debrief it and get their perspective on what happened, and use that as just continual training for those kinds of scenarios.
One of the things
with those new officers.
Point, Scott, about that, one of the things that I think would really help us with the guardianship aspect of it is that is agency taught, because that is specific to how your agency wants to be run. That is reflective of your leadership. If your leadership hates the people that they serve, you will hate the people that you serve. Seen it firsthand. I'll tell you this. If everything up until that point is preparing you for the warrior aspect of that and kind of saying to you, this is important for you for the rest of your career, to Chris's point, going out and practicing on your own, working out, staying sharp, understanding what's going on, not just because you're a SWAT guy, you're a drug detective, or you're on a TAC team or something like that. That is just part of what comes to the equation. If you don't bring that to the equation, you're wrong. The guardianship aspect of it is how your agency teaches you to interact with the community, that you're one of 18,000 agencies that do that. Now, we had 2 major agencies right outside of Chicago that were right close to each other, similar in size, population-wise, not that far apart. You're not talking like hundreds of thousands of people, maybe 10,000, 20,000 difference of people. Our agency was so different from the agency that bordered us, and it was one little road in the grand scheme of things that separate us. They handled things differently than we did because the demographic of their town was different, all sorts of stuff. The guardianship, I think, should be taught to you by your agency. That's what your field training officers for. Is like field training officers, you go like, well, that's a new gun. How often have you practiced with that? Is that a new holster? How often have you, like, it should be just understood, like, you're not even going to come to the equation doing stupid shit like that. Like, yeah, I moved my gear around again last night. Okay, really, how many times it takes you to get a rep out to realize that that is where that's going to be under stress? If you haven't done that at least 1,000 times, you're going to mess it up, especially under stress. That's what I wonder sometimes. Are we going about this all the wrong way? And that, from the time that you're a little kid, if you decide you want to do this, when I talk a little kid, I'm talking like you can't be throwing guns in kids' hands. But
why?
The NRA, which everybody hates, says you can start teaching a kid about firearms, which is a God-given right to us under our Constitution, as they say, at 12 years old. If you come to the equation and you're acting like a boob with a gun at the police academy, they yell at you. You may not pass the qualification, but they'll let you come back. It should be, you are done. You're such a disgrace to us. Get the fuck out of here. It's understood that you better come that squared away. If you come there and you don't understand, like you're not physically fit, or man, I just
dude, we had 2 guys fail during the pre-academy.
It's like, come on.
Yeah. Sean's Police Academy has one graduate per year.
It's that word.
Didn't we have 2
Hercules?
Didn't we have 2 guys that failed out during our pre-academy? Or was it 1?
For PT, yeah.
1 or 2, right?
2. Unless our listeners don't know, I was actually the president and Chris was the honor grad. So we had this his power.
Wow.
We had a lot of power, the two of us.
Rub it in.
Chris was the man behind the man, though. He was the puppet master.
I was the social
was,
chair.
Yeah, right. Scott was like everybody's buddy. Anyway, but I
Rush
mean, like
chairman.
the academy, like it should be just, hey, this is a review. It's just more reps for you, man. It's just more like of the warrior type reps, because that's what we should all know. Like when you go to another town, you're like, all right, we're setting up an L ambush on this vehicle. That's a felony stop. It's not like, oh my God, there's 70 guys charging up to the car right now. If one guy started shooting, 70 cops could potentially shoot other cops. And, you know, like why did Abner Louima get shot like freaking 78 times? I think because they ran out of bullets. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And those are the things that I talk about. Like that's what we should be just, when you come to field training, it should be like, hey, you're going to learn how the organization does business, but the tactical end of it, you should be as wise about this stuff as anybody else. And if it's over and over and over again, like if you don't know how to skate and you want to be in the NHL, you can't show up like, I want to be at this camp for the Blackhawks or whatever. I mean, which pretty much anybody can show up to now anyway, because we don't even have like 3 lines formed yet for the next season. But yeah, right. I mean, like you've got to be prepared. And we don't do that. And the warrior part of it, we have to spend so much time on it. People are like, oh, the militarization of the police. Well, guess what? This is important shit that we do, and we do it wrong. Innocent people die or don't survive. And we're seeing that hand in hand. People want to talk about how we can't have warriors. You have cops saying, get rid of the W word. Don't call them warriors. I don't want you calling them warriors when they're in the academy at all. You should be able to tell them you're everything to everyone, but here's how it works. And this is how we're going to train you for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I just think. I just think that people.
Yeah, and
no, I don't think you should.
I don't think you should be afraid to do that.
Part of it, and that's what I'm saying. It's basically like if you're a boss or you're a mom or you're a dad. Sometimes you have to take that hard road to make things better, and it should. If you want to put a label on it, whatever. It's just you got to become the person that that people expect you to become to save their life, the lives of their children, the lives of their family, protect their property. And I don't see, I guess people have to understand, in my opinion, that you have to have both. You do not want me going into a firefight or the fight of my life to save you or your children because somebody pulled a knife out, thinking that, I'm just going to kind of do the best that I can. No, you want me thinking that I'm going to take my boot off if I have to.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, think about for people out there that have children. Think about what it's like to have children and what you do to protect them. You know, that guardian type mentality just throughout their life on a day-to-day basis. But think about what you would do in a situation where someone was trying to harm one of your children, and think what you would react. And even people who are maybe not, typically prone to violence or, anything like that, but just the natural instinct that people get, and you see it in different stories all the time about, just something happens and a parent does this or whatever. Think about what you would do to protect your own children. It's kind of the same mindset of what we would be doing and what we would be experiencing. We want to be out there and be that guardian type person because that's who we are most of the time. But when it gets really bad, and I don't care whether you like me because I'm the police or don't like me because I'm the police or whatever your opinion is of me, regardless of the situation, if it becomes a situation where I need to protect your life or someone else's life, I'm going to do what I have to do regardless of what your opinion is.
Right. And I just think the other thing, I just to piggyback on that, not only what you do, but if we were standing there and you did, and somebody came after one of your children or after somebody you loved, how would you want me to react to that? How do you want me to? I guarantee you, no matter what. It's going to be a war. You're going to want me to stop them to come out. I'm sorry. So does Debbie every once in a while.
You know what's sad about all this? You guys are both making some serious. You guys have been around law enforcement long enough to know part of this. When you come out of the military, you kind of are live in this little bubble yourself where you're they just don't understand what people have to do, sacrifices that people have to make this a safer place. People don't understand it. You get appreciated for it. People are all right, here, have a cup of coffee. Here, sit in first class. Oh, you can't say anything, no matter what political party you're part of. bad about the military, and that's great. I mean, that's great. But you guys, like, you brought up some really valid points that we have to talk about this, because we honestly have moved so far away from any true threats. The threats are all internal now, and we want to ignore it and deny it. And we keep saying that evil doesn't exist, and it's not out there. And if it's not out there, I don't have to worry about it. I can sit behind a computer all day, and I can not have to worry about it. I live this sedentary lifestyle. I don't have any kind of manual labor, no work in my life anymore. People aren't held accountable. So people, like, as much as we anti-bully and everything else, bullies are alive and well. Just look at your Facebook page when you post something that might have somebody disagree with you. Just because they're not in your face anymore because they don't have the guts to do that anymore, the bullies are still out there. And the bullies are still out there saying to you, hey, I bought a gun. I'm going to go kill a bunch of black people in a Buffalo freaking supermarket. And we go, huh? What should we do? Because we've moved so far away from the idea of, go back to the show, we say, hey, what's with confrontation? This is like the residue of us living so successfully and so safely for so long, and saying there's no draft, there's no desire, there's no need. We're dying citizens. Somebody else will take care of that crap for me, but not me. And that's why they call Republicans chicken hawks, because they're like, war, 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 because it's great and it's a patriotic. You wrap yourself the flag.
Did he just
My
say
kids aren't
chicken
going,
hawk?
No, your kids are.
What are you, boy? Boy.
Yeah, that's
are you a chicken hawk?
It's like, hey, I'm a big
chicken hawk,
supporter of the
chicken
military. I never served. I'm never planning on sending my kids. If there was a reason to send my kids, I would get them a really, really great assignment, but I'd be so pro whatever. Like, Americans think they're helping by complaining about it, or changing their profile pic to be reflective of the Ukrainian colors or the French colors when the terrorists were killing those artists over there that were drawing images of Muhammad. It's like, look, I'm helping. So no, like, all of us need to make a sacrifice. All of us need to see what it takes to do this, and see that it's not exactly as it's been portrayed to you by the media or by educators or by whoever doesn't agree with the idea that we don't need a warrior culture or a portion of a warrior culture in our society. Like, I look at it and I said, well, what's causing this? This idea is like, how many guys that you know of, they're like, yeah, they look at you when you said, I want to be a cop. And they were like, even at Western, Scott, people were probably like, and that's a cop school. People were like, you want to go do that? Like, people would question, like, why would you want to do that after getting out of the military? That's what people said to me. You did your time. It's just like, look, my son served. I served. My son shouldn't have to. I remember World War II vets were saying that in Vietnam. And I used to say to myself, well, that's cool. I understand that. You see a lot of hellacious shit. And you don't trust politicians because they're going to send people off to die that shouldn't. But the bottom line is this fight to protect freedom and people's safety never ends. And if it's not for us, who? And like, when your kid comes up to you and says, hey, Dad, I think I want to be a cop. And you're like, oh, shit. How can I be as pro cop as I am and pro whatever as I am, and say to him, no, you're not. You're not doing that.
Right.
You're going to be a goalie.
Yeah.
Go be a goalie.
Yeah.
You're going to make $29,000 a year playing in the ECHL as a goalie and moving every freaking 3 weeks. That's a great life if he loves that. But the bottom line is that at a certain point, if he says to me, hey, Dad, I want a steady income like you made and made good money doing it, what do I say to him? How do I say no? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, we've moved so far away from having any real threats. Now that they're here at our doorstep, we're wondering what we should do. Oh, we can't have warriors. Yeah, we need them, because you saw what happens when we don't.
Exactly. Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I know we're focusing a lot on the warrior part, that we really do care about the guardian part. It's just that I think the warrior part is the one that seems to be more controversial lately. And we almost feel like Chris is talking about, like, we have to defend it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like I have to defend it, because I do spend 90% of my time in that guardian mode, you know, just like we all, I mean, whatever, you know, doing the things, serving your community, being a good representation of your agency, all that kind of stuff. So that just comes natural, I think, to most people who join this profession. But you hate then to think, listen, the part that nobody ever talks about, and the part that my job, I go to work every day and put a bulletproof vest on that I don't even really think about anymore.
And more cops are having to use it every single day.
That's the reality of what we do, you know,
and it's getting worse.
And we are right. And we want to be there for you in the good. And we're telling you that we are prepared to be there for you in the bad. And we are prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice for you in the bad if we have to. And all we're asking is just don't be critical of that. Don't say, because that's never going away. Okay. You can take you can try to take all the guns away. We can try to fix all the mental health problems. We can try to do all these things that are going to take that away, but it's never going to go away. Unfortunately, there are just bad people out there, and at some point are going to wind up in some kind of violent confrontation with the police or trying to take away the lives of other people, and
Right.
we have to react and step in and stop that. And I just want people to understand that we don't go out there every day, saying, I hope today's the day I'm going to get in a fight. I want to fight with people today. It's not like that. It's not healthy. It's not what we do, but it is part of what we do. And
Right. I agree. I mean, that's
we just want people to understand that.
And that's what I think the biggest takeaway is from the show is I think it's that fact that they exist. We all think that both have to exist in police officers, and we pray that the police officers know when to use each and hope that they don't have to use the warrior part. But when it does happen, that they have the fortitude to do it and do it well.
And they're trained,
Right.
properly for it, and they mitigate and minimize any kind of peripheral damage that would be causing that. Maybe not even having to take an individual's life if that's the case, because if you don't make the investment in your community to do that, you don't make the investment in your first responders that have to come out and deal with these situations, you're going to continue to see some of these circumstances. And again, until we get a lot of things, people working together on this, I think it's going to continue to be a problem. A close for you guys moving forward through the 21st century. How do you see we fix this real quick? Scott?
I think for the people that are entering this profession, right. I think we try to do more to expose them to more of that early on in their training so that they can have some more of those experiences from a training perspective so they're better prepared for the real life situations when they happen. And then again, just keeping people, the public informed, like we kind of talked about today, of when these situations arise. This is why we do what we do, and this is what we're here to do in those situations. And it's to protect anyone and everyone that's out there.
Preparation and better communications to people we serve. That's good. Thank you.
I agree. I mean, I think it's making sure that, everybody coming onto the job is prepared. And I think we need to make sure that everybody realizes what we do, what the tools that we need are. And unfortunately, with the evil people that they're out in this world, that we do have to have a warrior portion of us. And the guardian is there, to make sure that everything stays afloat and what you see. And I think Scott's right. I think education and preparedness are the best two ways to make sure, and obviously to make sure we communicate what difference is in what we do.
Yeah, and in closing for me, I'd say that I think the most important thing is we all need to do, whether it be cops or the people that we serve, is to better understand what it takes to do these things. Take them much more seriously than we have, because cops every day, we're talking July 21st, 2022, every single day you pick up your phone, you read another thing about a cop getting killed. And I think that comes from the longest time. It's like, hey, it ain't ever going to happen to me. It's not whatever. We need to take it seriously and be prepared for it. Understand that the vast majority of people still like us out there, and prepare yourself for that 10% of the work that we got to do. Civilians understand what needs to happen, understand what our work is. Stop believing what divisive social media people want you to believe because it gets clicks, and educate yourself to the fact. Become a more responsible citizen. Understand that a shared sacrifice is an integral part of any society moving forward together, because a house that is that divided is going to do nothing but fall. So that's where I'll leave it at that, and hope that we all can grow together in this circumstance. Christopher,
and as we take us out, I'm going to read one quote that I see quite often. This is from Orwell. It says, "People sleep peaceably in their beds at night only because rough men stand ready to do violence on their behalf." And I want you guys to think about that, because that's what we do. We are ready to do that for anybody who needs it. Thank you all for listening. Please go to where you get your podcasts, subscribe, download, leave a rating review. We'd much appreciate it to get this word out to as many millions of people as possible. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us, or suggestions for a show. You could email us at 3copstalk@gmail.com. The number 3copstalk@gmail.com. And also you can obtain information at the website, 3copstalk.com. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, boys. Have a good night.